Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh of Severe Weather. Happy week to you. Happy Monday to you. Lots of weather to still talk about here in April. We're dealing with some winter weather in parts of the north central and northeastern U.S. and more severe weather on tap for this upcoming week. And we're going to get right to it. If you could subscribe to this YouTube channel, I'm going to have pretty much daily videos for you guys and updates throughout the day as weather dictates. Let me share my screen with you and show you what we're looking at heading into the end of the week and next weekend. And yet another potential winter storm over the weekend for the Great Lakes region into central Canada. As the pattern sort of repeats itself. Up until then, it's going to be a pretty quiet week across the eastern United States, with the exception of around the Great Lakes. Once again, we're looking at wet weather down south heading to the end of the week and start of the weekend. There could be some severe weather there as well. And then farther east over the weekend, starting warm and then turning unsettled again. So yet another weekend where we're going to be dealing with watching the radar for you guys and maybe looking at some severe potential and some heavy rain down south as well. So this pattern looks like it's going to continue to repeat itself. Currently, we've got a very intense upper level trough with a low pressure system spinning over Lake Michigan. Behind it, some intense wind and some heavy wet snow falling over parts of the upper Midwest. And Wisconsin just getting pelted with heavy snowfall out of this. The eastern United States is looking at some rain across the northeast and some heavy storms over parts of the Florida Peninsula. Which have seen quite a bit more rain here, just the switch flicked here over the last week. But the good news is that a lot of this is going to move offshore, and we've got a pretty decent weather pattern coming up for the next several days. All eyes are going to be on the next storm system, a big spin up here off of the Pacific Northwest coast. That will send moisture inland, so the Northwest will deal with a chilly, unsettled start to the week. And then as that storm progresses eastward, we've got more severe weather to talk about in the plains and into parts of the South for the second half of the upcoming week. Here's a look at the radar out of Wisconsin, and it is really coming down near Chippewa Falls on northward, right up the Superior region. Some of these snowfall rates are getting over an inch per hour, and with the wind going over 35 miles per hour, we do have some blizzard conditions. And in fact, a blizzard warning in effect here for portions of whoops, let me find it for you guys here. Portions of northwestern Wisconsin, as well as the far western portion of upper Michigan. So it's not a huge area in a blizzard warning, but a pretty big area that's in a winter storm warning over much of the western half of Wisconsin. So definitely a surprise there. We've seen totals as high as 19 inches on the ground near Neillsville, Wisconsin, right here to the southeast of Eau Claire. A lot of places that have picked up over 8-9 inches in west central parts of Wisconsin. We did have some severe, I'm going to learn to talk here. We did have some severe weather over the weekend, quite a bit here. In fact, Saturday was pretty much as billed here, over 450 reports of severe weather. A lot of that came from our frontal squall line, and we had several tornado reports in the St. Louis area, an EF1 tornado that touched down in Ringgold, Louisiana, which seems to get quite a few tornadoes, this portion of northwestern Louisiana, but also a tornado that produced some injuries and 96 mile per hour wind gusts here near Rolla and Vichy, Missouri. So we had very intense storms here Saturday afternoon. We also had a complex of storms that formed in Louisiana and moved right across the Gulf states here, and that produced some very heavy rainfall as well as significant amounts of severe weather and wind. We also had hail back across Texas. So Saturday was a very busy day. Even in the Northeast, we had some reports of hail, and I did see a report of a tree that got struck by lightning and fell on a car and killed somebody in eastern Pennsylvania. So obviously my thoughts go out to those folks that have been impacted by that storm. Yesterday was quieter, but we did have a lot of severe weather around the Great Lakes and into lower Ontario. There were multiple watches and warnings with over 34 reports of severe wind. And then overnight, we also had some severe wind and some significant rain around Palm Beach, where over 5 inches of rain fell. So parts of Florida still getting pelted. Now, the attention shifts to this storm that is leaving and producing some chilly weather across the Northeast. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but we've got on its heels another significant storm, which is going to move into the western and northern parts of the U.S. and some fast winds aloft coming into the southern Rockies here. That is going to set up some more severe weather here over the plains over the next couple of days, but more so as we get to Thursday and Friday. You can see this upper low does push south, and that pushes our belt of fast winds aloft into Kansas and Missouri. In the warm sector here, we definitely have to watch out for some more severe weather, and that'll continue into the weekend. Now, as this slowly shifts eastward, it's going to be pretty warm up the East Coast over the start of the weekend, but turning much colder here as this trough pushes east. And what we could see here is kind of a following shortwave, which is going to produce surface low pressure, and that's going to track up right behind where the cold air is in place and could set up another winter storm in here across the upper Midwest. So we're going to talk more about that here, and then we'll see the switch flicked here in the eastern United States, where it turns a lot colder here in about a week. So we are going to see some potential storms here today over the Rockies and the southern high plains. Probably nothing widespread as far as severe weather goes. As we get to tomorrow, though, we do start to focus on our next storm system. And with the dry line, there is a marginal risk of some severe weather across West Texas into southwest Kansas, as well as across the mid-Missouri Valley here, including Omaha and Sioux Falls. As we get to day 3, Wednesday, and especially Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, we do have a slight risk for some severe weather, and that could include a lot of large hail, but also possibly a tornado or two and some strong wind over central and eastern Kansas, right on up into Des Moines overnight. And the threat for severe weather continues on Thursday into Thursday night farther south. The same places that got hit here on Saturday are going to be under the gun here as we get to Thursday afternoon and Thursday night. And then that threat for severe weather lingers across the Ark-La-Miss region into Jackson, Mississippi, and into East Texas. So parts of the deep south will have the threat for a few tornadoes, a lot of rain, a lot of wind, and potentially some hail as well as we get into Friday and Friday night, and maybe even Saturday farther south and east. But right now, no outlook at this point. It's a little bit uncertain as to the models agreeing on where that'll set up on Saturday. But the cycle looks like it does repeat itself from this past week. So likely more severe weather down here in parts of the southeast and maybe into the Tennessee Valley. And here's a look at the GFS model so you can start to see where things shape up. Here's our big storm over the upper Midwest. It is starting to move away into northern Canada, and we are seeing sharply cooler weather returning to the eastern Great Lakes and the interior Northeast with some snow expected. Next storm moves through the Northwest here. We're going to see snow showers in lower elevations, close to Seattle and Portland even. We could see a few flurries there tonight, but mainly the mountains going to be picking up some snow out of this. Rain across the Pacific Northwest as well. Excuse me. As we get into Tuesday night, we can see storms erupting here over the parts of the Missouri Valley into the Mississippi Valley later Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And a sharp gradient in temperature here. We've got a strong front that's going to move through. So it'll be pretty warm Wednesday over Iowa, but much colder back across the higher elevations and into the western Dakotas and eastern Montana. And we could see locally some blizzard conditions here, northwestern North Dakota into southern Manitoba and southeast Saskatchewan here towards the middle of the week. As we get into Thursday, this storm does shift eastward. We see more storms farther south, all the way down into northeastern Texas here, Thursday afternoon, Thursday night. And then it turns colder on Friday, and another low pressure system forms in here on Saturday morning. And where this low tracks could be quite uncertain right now, but could be significant. If it does try to buckle back in, we could see with this colder air aloft some snow falling over the upper Midwest, and that may include Chicago, Milwaukee, possibly even Grand Rapids and Detroit here over the weekend. The GFS is not showing that solution just yet. However, the Canadian model here that I'm going to show you guys does show that storm track does come up farther south and east, and right now at least some potential for some accumulating snow all the way down into the Chicagoland area, and especially across western and northern Michigan and eastern Wisconsin. And that threat for snow would be on Saturday and Saturday night, and then moving up into Canada on Sunday. So a little bit uncertain, but a lot of the ensembles and a lot of the operational models show low pressure coming up, kind of a wave coming up behind into the colder air, and that slaps moisture back to the west. And with the strong trough that we have coming through here, winter is not necessarily over just yet. So here's a look at the thunderstorm index here. We see storms across Florida. I'm going to dive more into that in a little bit. We could see some storms as well over parts of West Texas and eastern New Mexico. And the downside of this is while we need the rain, there may not be much of it. So we may have actually more of a threat for some dry lightning that can cause some wildfires in this region. So be prepared for that if you're a viewer in West Texas or eastern New Mexico. Also, there could be a few strikes with our next storm moving into the Pac Northwest here and as well across Alberta over the next 24 to 48 hours. Now, as we get to Tuesday night, we see storms erupting on the dry line and across the upper Midwest or the northern Rockies and high plains here as we get to Tuesday night. That's ahead of our next storm system. It comes in two waves. So here's wave one Wednesday, and then here comes wave number two right behind it Wednesday night into Thursday. And we'll see significant storms likely across eastern and central Texas, right up through the Mississippi Valley into the Great Lakes, including Chicago on Thursday night. That shifts east and southward. Friday will be busy down south once again Friday night into Saturday. And more storms possible over the weekend across the mid-Atlantic region into Florida, and maybe as well across parts of west and central Texas. Let's take a look at Florida right now. We've seen quite a bit of rain, about 5 inches in West Palm Beach here, and that should start to let up here. We'll still see a few storms, though, across southwestern Florida this morning. This is at about 9 o'clock Eastern time, 10, 11. It stays pretty wet across south central Florida and then southeastern Florida this afternoon. Additional storms across West Palm Beach, across Port St. Lucie, maybe up close to Vero Beach as well. And these will die off as we get to this evening and finally move away and we see quieter weather. But quite a bit of lightning with these storms out there this morning. And we'll continue to see unsettled weather through the afternoon hours around Lake Okeechobee and over to the Treasure Coast and then down to Fort Lauderdale, which does not need to see more lightning, of course, but things do quiet down. Rainfall totals for the rest of the day could get up over 2 inches locally in Palm Beach County and over an inch up to about Melbourne and the Space Coast. We could also see an inch or two as well on the Treasure Coast. So it'll be pretty unsettled here for the next, say, 12 hours or so before things finally quiet down here later this evening. We'll also see some locally heavy rain where it is a little bit more needed. Although I guess we never really need a heavy thunderstorm, but certainly some rain needed here from near Tampa Bay on down through Bradenton, Sarasota, and to about Port Charlotte here. Here's a look at the upper Midwest storm. Let's zoom in and show you guys precipitation types here, and it'll still be snowing through the morning hours across central Wisconsin, then through the afternoon over northern Wisconsin. We'll see snow showers starting late today and continuing into this evening around the Buffalo area and on southward. Buffalo had a record high yesterday of 86 and then severe winds. Now we're talking about wet snowflakes falling. So a temperature tumble of over 40 degrees, and that's what I say to that. But yeah, a big drop coming in temperature here. So we still have a little bit of winter to deal with, whereas New England will see showers, maybe a few isolated storms, nothing too impactful at this point. And then we see that snow falling across southwest Quebec and southeastern Ontario here on Tuesday. And accumulations look to be pretty minimal at this point when you get into the bigger cities. But, you know, definitely it's a shock coming. And then things quiet down on Wednesday with the next storm beginning to bring a little bit of a mixed bag here to northern Wisconsin and Michigan, followed by some warming, followed by yet another winter storm. Here's a look at additional snow totals on the ground. We could still see another 6 to 10 inches on top of what we've had across northwest Wisconsin, even more when we get up into central and northwest Ontario. Accumulations will be lighter, but could see some flakes in the northwest suburbs of Chicago here that actually try to stick, mainly off to the grass. We could also see a little bit of accumulation around Madison on eastward toward Milwaukee, maybe around an inch or so on the ground, and maybe some grassy accumulation over northwestern Michigan, as well as across southwest New York and northwestern PA. So not a big deal, but obviously after the record warmth we had a few days, it definitely comes as a shock to us. The HVAC is running, you know, from the heat or from the AC a few days ago to the heat today and tonight. So it definitely makes a big difference for those of you. And I'm very much aware of that. And we see this drop in temperature spreading eastward while it's still kind of mild here across the Hudson Valley and the mid-Atlantic today. But we see around the Appalachians and on west into the Alleghenies and into the Great Lakes, temperatures are struggling to get past 40 this afternoon. And in the 30s most of the day in northern Illinois, Michigan, and Wisconsin, even staying below freezing here in the area that's still getting some localized blizzard conditions. As we get to tonight, temperatures fall quite a bit. It's a cold night across the Northeast, 20s and 30s, 40s for the coastal areas. Even the southeast will be chilly, 40s in the Tennessee Valley, low 50s down to the Gulf Coast, but it is going to warm back up slowly. You can see on Tuesday, it's still chilly around the lakes themselves, and certainly chilly across the Northeast. We're looking at around upper 40s and low 50s tomorrow for most of the day, sneaking into the 50s in the afternoon for the Northeast. But there's milder air. It's on its way back in. And Wednesday, you'll start to notice that warm up coming here as we're back into the low 60s around New York and Philly, into the 70s in Virginia, and even Chicago should get back into the 60s Wednesday. Thursday, even warmer than that. We're back into the 70s and low 80s. Probably not record warmth, but certainly well above average for Thursday. As we get to Friday, kind of more of the same for the Northeast. We'll be into the 70s and low to mid 80s, so not as hot as last week was, but still pretty warm. The Great Lakes, though, starting to cool down. Here's our boundary that's moved through on Friday, and you'll see Saturday temperatures may not get out of the 40s across the majority of the Great Lakes, even 30s in the upper Midwest. And temperatures cool Saturday night, and with that moisture coming up, we've got to watch out for more wet snow coming on Sunday and possibly Sunday night into early on Monday. So the roller coaster ride continues here across the Great Lakes and Northeast. Farther to the south, though, we are actually going to be enjoying some pretty good weather here the next several days. The Southeast, cool nights, nice afternoons here right on through the middle of the week. Then it starts warming up the second half of the week. And then, of course, we've got to talk about some rain. And some of that rain could be on the heavy side here again as we look at rainfall totals here in excess of an inch, maybe 2 inches here across Arkansas. We have to watch out for localized flash flooding and river flooding as well. But beautiful weather across the Southeast once our Florida storm moves out of the area. Should be pretty nice until we get towards the weekend, once again in the Carolinas, Georgia, northern Florida, and eastern Alabama. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you for checking in with me and checking in on the weather. New content coming on a daily basis. If you could like this video and share it with your friends, I very much would appreciate that. And as always, I want to not only thank you, but thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for allowing me to do what I do every day. Heard a great message in my church yesterday, and I know a lot of you aren't believers, and listen, I'm not judging, but how many people here can raise their hand and say they've had people betray them or let them down, whether it be family members, a father, or even a family or friends who have just, relationships have gone sour, and those people have ended up coming and going in your life and not providing the support you'd like. Well, the reason why I share my faith with you is because, up until about 10 years ago, I felt like I was betrayed by people. I had a lot of people let me down, but since I discovered God, since I allowed him into my life, since I accepted Jesus Christ, I found that I have a Father who will never leave me. I've got a family of believers who will always love me no matter what, whether or not I sin or do things that just, are disappointing. And most importantly, because of the saving grace, the amazing grace of the sacrifices made for me, I've got a future that cannot be taken from me. And I pray that you're in that situation as well, where you believe that, things are going to be tough. You're going to go through trials and tribulations, but in the end, none of that matters, that you're going to have eternal life through Jesus Christ. And if you don't believe that, no judgment at all. 30 years of my life, I didn't believe it as well, but there will be a time where you've got that uncertainty, not knowing where you're going to be eternally. And I would love for you to choose the path that I've taken, that millions of others have taken. So I'm happy to pray for you if that's the situation you're in. And if you already are a believer and you're struggling in your faith, or you're struggling with something in life, I'm happy to pray for you as well. Please leave me a comment or two, and we'll all pray for you. Thank you so much for your time today. God bless you. Talk to you again in the morning. Have a great Monday.